My name is Daria Milenkovic, and this is my presentation on learning theories. Learning theories have existed for a very long time. Disputes over these theories date back to classical Greek philosophers Plato and Aristotle, who debated over rationalism versus empiricism. Plato believed knowledge and truth can be discovered by self-reflection, while his student Aristotle believed the senses were needed to look for truth and knowledge in the world. Contemporary theorists later introduced a scientific approach to the study of learning and began conducting research studies on the development of knowledge, experience, motivation, and learning strategies. Debates are still ongoing, with many different theories on how people learn and the best teaching methods. What is learning theory? Theory is defined as a way of thinking and a model of how things work, how principles are related, and what causes things to work together. Learning theories address how learning happens, how motivation happens, and what influences come to play in learners' development. A theory is developed from practical experience as well as research. A theory is modified over time based on the insights of practitioners as well as the work of researchers. Therefore, theories get built on one another and improve each other as they get researched. Due to this process, many theories share common elements and intersect with each other, as we will see later on in the presentation. Why study theory? It is important to study theory in order to understand how people learn, to build on existing theories, improve those theories, develop new theories, so that they can be applied in practice and further develop practical implications for teaching. So how do we bridge theory and practice? Integrating theory into practice involves an iterative process of developing a deep understanding of how people learn and what influences motivation, what influences development, what counts in the social context, and how family and culture and teaching all make a difference. For teachers, theory provides some guidance in making decisions about curriculum and teaching strategies. Here, besides being theory consumers, teachers can also be theory makers as they develop learning practices to best suit their students. For students, once theory is applied into practice in a learning environment, such as face-to-face, blended, or online, a learning process takes place where students construct knowledge from experience, build on prior knowledge, and organize their own learning. Today, we have many learning theories. Some have very specific perspectives, while others embrace broader ideologies and often overlap. The 20th century introduced behavioralist and cognitivist theories. Major contributions to behaviorist theory came from Thorndike and Skinner. Learning is based on stimulus response, is essentially passive, and is the result of external stimuli in the environment. The learner is considered a blank slate. Learning behavior is developed through positive or negative reinforcement and is defined by the change in behavior. Some criticisms of behavior theory state that the theory is not considerate of internal mental states or consciousness, and that it is not able to generate more complex thinking and higher mental functions. Therefore, a shift was made towards cognitivist theory. Cognitivist theory challenges the behaviorist theory by arguing that learning goes beyond stimulus response and is the result of developed cognitive process where knowledge is created rather than received. The main contributor to cognitivist theory was Piaget, stating that students build their own knowledge based on their experiences related to their biological, physical, and mental stage of development. Cognitivist theory focuses on inner mental activities and higher order learning involving critical thinking, memory, knowing, problem solving, and processing information much like a computer. Contemporary theorists criticize the cognitivist theory for excluding the learner's prior knowledge based on cultural and social influences, the processing differences learners may have, and their emotional well-being. Later in the 20th century, another shift came about, this time towards constructivist theory. The Russian scientist Vygotsky built on Piaget's development cognitive theory to include sociocultural cognition, the idea that social interactions are fundamental to all learning and that all learning occurs in a cultural context. Culture and language play a role, as well as social and natural environments. With the guidance of teachers, students are able to bridge what they already know with what they learn and eventually problem solve independently. Learning occurs in this zone between the assistance of teachers and students working on their own, called the zone of proximal development. Learning is therefore an active process where students learn by doing rather than by acquiring knowledge, and teachers collaborate with their students instead of transmitting information. This cooperative learning in the classroom allows the students to build and construct new knowledge and skills, integrate them with existing knowledge, and retrieve this learned information in the future. It is important to note that some constructivist theories suggest that learning is often incidental in social process of learning. Situated learning theory explains that learning is unintentional and normally occurs within activity, context, and culture. Students are involved in the communities of practice, where social interaction and collaboration are essential. The term communities of practice came about in the 1990s with the increased growth of online communities. The term is widely used today to represent a process of social learning that occurs when people who have a shared common interest in a subject actively collaborate within their community through regular interactions to develop new solutions and build new innovations by applying their knowledge to practice. This process can become a motivator and a powerful incentive for the learner to develop skills and knowledge that others they admire may have. Within situated learning, as the student moves from the perimeter of the community circle to the center, he or she becomes more dedicated, active, and engaged within the culture, and eventually becomes an expert on the subject matter, and can therefore engage and teach others in the community. The learner in constructivist theory is not a blank slate, as in behaviorist theory, and learners' past experiences are included based on emotional intelligence and social and cultural context. The learner is also an information constructor, not an information processor, as suggested in cognitivist theory, although it should be noted that people learn in different ways. Criticism of the constructivist theories points out that students may be unsure what content is important to learn and may therefore experience misconceptions on the learning subject or experience a cognitive overload. Teachers must be careful to notice if these problems occur and whether their students possess any prior experience. Teachers may also find it challenging to provide their students with sufficient coaching and scaffolding in order to allow students to construct knowledge from previous experience. This presentation introduced several important learning theories: behaviorist theory, cognitivist theory, and constructivist theory. These theories have different approaches to pedagogy and andragogy. In today's world, both teaching and learning are experiencing a movement toward greater and practical use of information and communication technologies. E-learning has become the main focus in our digital age, reshaping educational practices. We have digital immigrants and digital natives using technology to teach and learn, and a shift to e-learning environments such as blended and distributed is becoming more prominent in our digital world. According to theorists, e-learning does not have one specific theory and requires further development. Many suggest that e-learning is still a form of learning and therefore interconnects and overlaps the three major learning theories examined in this presentation. Others focus on the teaching aspect of learning and instructional design. Tony Bates describes e-learning as a continuum ranging from classroom aids to distance education. He defines e-learning as all computer and internet-based activities that support teaching and learning both on campus and at a distance. He points out that all teaching now demands use of some technology and stresses the importance of the learning in e-learning. Richard Andrews also emphasizes the learning aspect of e-learning. He argues that most research today focuses on how to teach, or e-teaching, and not enough on learning. He examines the relationship between learning and technology, where learning is technologically enhanced and changes and develops alongside technology. He defines e-learning as a reconceptualization of learning that makes use of not only instructor-led pedagogy, but all the flexibility that asynchronous multi-party contribution can bring. He concludes that due to the capabilities of electronic learning environments, e-learning is so much more than contemporary learning. It is a social act that allows the learner to connect to other communities that provide a richer, more extensive opportunity for learning independent of space, resource, and time. Clark and Mayer also examine how people learn using the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. This theory is based on the cognitive information processing theory of how people process information and how knowledge is constructed. Learning involves making sense of the presented material by attending to relevant information, mentally reorganizing it, and connecting with what you already know. We process information into our short-term memory through dual sensory channels, visual and auditory, using pictures and words from the multimedia presentation. We then actively process received information in our working memory by filtering and selecting relevant images and words through eyes and ears to reduce the cognitive load in our limited channel capacity. Then, we organize pictures and words into logical mental constructs and integrate them with prior knowledge into long-term memory to be retrieved when required in the future. Clark and Mayer define e-learning as instruction delivered on a digital device such as a computer or mobile device that is intended to support learning. They focus their definition of e-learning more so on the teaching and the quality of instruction. They point out that learning is caused by effective instructional methods rather than the delivering medium. They look at the role the digital technology plays in the process of managing and delivering instruction. Helen Connors, in her YouTube video, also recognizes the importance of instruction systems design. She points out that the actual focus is on the pedagogy and andragogy, not the technology. The technology is seen as the enabler and as a tool used to improve teaching strategies. Effective teachers utilize the use of technology and incorporate learning theories in their classrooms in order to be more effective in their teaching methods. They organize the information, knowledge, and activities in their learning environment by taking into account how people process information and by linking learning to prior experience and prior knowledge. Effective teachers model content and provide feedback and support through scaffolding. Effective teachers organize their learning environment to provide students with active, hands-on learning experiences combined with reflective learning experiences and exploration, where the teacher is not the only source of knowledge. Effective teachers enable collaboration and interaction between their students and promote active learning, where students could learn together and learn from each other. Effective e-lessons should include content relevant to learning objectives using media elements such as words and pictures, and instructional methods such as examples, practice exercises, and feedback. The delivery of material can be asynchronous, meaning self-paced or self-study, or synchronous via instructor in consideration of the cognitive overload. This model of effective instructional design answers the questions of what, how, and why of e-learning. Other supporters of this instruction model include Helen Connors, Mohammed Ali, Terry Mays, and Sarah DeFrieds. They address the what, how, and why aspects of e-learning by integrating behaviorist, cognitivist, and constructivist theories.
But in a course, you really need all of those. You need to give them some content and concepts, which is the know what, and then you need them to work with that, which is the know how, and then be able to apply it in their own personal use, which is the know why.
The same schools of thought as in the video were explored by Ali, Mays, and DeFrieds in the same concept. Behaviorism is used to explain the what, which refers to the teaching of facts, modeling the content, and coaching by providing students with feedback. Cognitivism is used to address the how, students' interaction with content and processing of information with instructors' assistance, support, and guidance. And constructivist strategies to explain the why, where students reflect using their own experience and construct new knowledge by linking new information with existing. Teachers then remove the scaffolds so that the student can explore, research, and develop higher thinking on their own in order to personalize the knowledge for real-life application. This new knowledge is then processed into long-term memory so that it can be applied in the real world. All three major theories presented here have made significant contributions to e-learning, are fairly recent, technologically enhanced teaching and learning practice, but they still require more improvement. Debates are ongoing about the best teaching methods and the different strategies that are useful for different kinds of learning. As presented here, e-learning changes the nature of learning in so many ways. Learning is socially situated through e-communities and therefore independent of space, resource, and time. The overlapping theories that e-learning is being built on are not complete and perfect. They require more work and development for the digital age. With the growing information and communication technologies, we need to keep up to date and acquire new knowledge on an ongoing basis. As Ali suggested, we must develop the ability to unlearn old information and learn new current information in order to be prepared to function in the digital and networked world. By studying these thought-provoking theories, we can grasp all the different ideologies they address and perhaps work towards a universal e-learning theory. This could take a very long time to happen, if it ever will, due to the ever-changing technologies. Until then, we will continue to use the existing theories and build upon them to be able to apply them in practice in our instructional design development. We must also continue conducting scientific research studies to determine best teaching and learning practices for our e-learning environments. That was my presentation on learning theories. Thank you for your attention. Hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to your questions and comments.